Thanks so much for coming this afternoon. I know we're almost at the end of the show now, so it's getting a bit of a push. But thanks for joining me. My name is Brooke Silvers. I'm a Trade Development Officer at UKTI in Sydney, and I work within the creative industries, homewares, giftwares, and e-commerce sectors. This afternoon I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the giftware and homeware sectors in Australia and the opportunities there. I'll also touch briefly on the New Zealand market. This isn't my area, so I will only speak briefly about it, but if you do have any questions, please ask me afterwards. So just to give an overview of what I'll be speaking about today, start by looking just generally at Australia and New Zealand, the trends and drives there in the giftware and homeware industries, the opportunities available, and I'll be talking briefly about the routes to market, potential barriers to entry, and how UKTI Australia can assist you in setting up successfully there or exporting. And finally, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have at the end. So if you think of anything, jot it down and ask me at the end. So just to give you a brief overview of Australia, Australia is an island continent, and it's the world's 6th largest country. Just to give you an idea of the enormity of the country, it's a 5.5-hour flight from Sydney on the east coast to Perth on the west coast. That's a couple of days driving. Although Australia is a very large country, it has a relatively small population of only 23 million people, and 85% of the population does live along the coast, particularly on the east coast. Our most densely populated cities are Sydney and Melbourne on the east side, and our capital city is Canberra. Australia's legal system is very similar to the UK's. Our legal and taxation laws have derived from UK laws, but we do have state and federal laws as well, and some of the regulations do vary between them. And just looking now at New Zealand, it's our neighbours across the ditch. And New Zealand has a much smaller population of only 4.4 million, with the majority of the population living in the North Island and primarily in Auckland. The capital city of New Zealand is Wellington, which is situated on the southern tip of the North Island. And although New Zealand seems like it is the end of the world, it's a very developed market and offers one of the world's most competitive and open markets with low tariffs. So why should you look at Australia for exporting or setting up? Australia boasts a variety of unique advantages for UK businesses to succeed in the giftware and homeware sectors. Australia's location, strong economy, stable and efficient regulatory environment, and multilingual workforce fosters an innovative environment for business. Australia is a relatively easy country to do business. Besides the obvious reasons such as language, we have similar taxation and legal systems. There are currently over 1,000 UK companies doing business in Australia, and Australia's strong, robust economy makes UK products even more accessible. Furthermore, Australia provides a great gateway to Asia. So just to give you an overview of how the giftware and homeware sectors are performing at the moment in Australia, currently the giftware and homeware industries are valued at over 6.5 billion Australian dollars, and that's expected to continue growing over the next few years. And this growth can be attributed to a few different reasons, namely the strong Australian dollar and our robust economy, and also the increased amount of disposable incomes. The markets are quite developed and sophisticated, and they encompass a wide range of products and services as well. Like the UK, our peak seasons for the giftware and homeware markets are Christmas, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and Valentine's Day, although our Father's Day and Mother's Day do vary to yours. So some of the trends in the market that we're seeing at the moment, Australia's giftware and homewares market is very trend-driven. Australia has a reputation for being impulsive buyers, and with a strong Australian dollar, consumers are spending more on items that they probably wouldn't necessarily have bought. They're buying them now not just based on their functionality, but because they look nice or they're pretty. The trend in Australia is looking towards items that are unique, a bit alternative or quirky, and generally items that aren't readily available. and both Australia and New Zealand consumers are very savvy shoppers. They follow international trends and display an appetite for fresh, niche and innovative products with international flair. Online retailing is fast becoming one of the largest drivers behind giftware and homewares industries, with more and more consumers using the internet to source items from abroad. So what sort of opportunities exist for UK companies? These trends that I've just outlined, along with Australia's strong economy and disposable income, provide numerous opportunities for UK companies looking to do business in Australia. UK brands are highly recognisable, both in Australia and in New Zealand, and British products are well regarded for their quality and sometimes their value. Australians are constantly looking for new and exciting products and designs. And aided by the liberal trade policies and low import quotas, Australia actually imports more than it exports, with the UK being one of our largest trading partners. This is also similar for the New Zealand market. So let's look a little bit more specific at the different markets. I'll break them down into the different sectors. So looking at the homewares retailing market, this covers a broad range of products, from tableware and cooking utensils all the way to linen. The homewares industry is heavily influenced by trends in new dwelling commencements and the level of discretionary spending in the economy. Currently, the homewares industry is valued at 1.5 billion Australian dollars, and this is expected to continue growing in the coming years. Although many Australians purchase their homewares based on functionality, as I mentioned, there is an increase in the volume of purchases that are more novel and in the higher end brackets. These trends also have been observed in the New Zealand market. So looking at giftware, Australia's giftware market is currently valued at over 5 billion Australian dollars, and this also is expected to increase. The giftware market is reasonably competitive, with consumers constantly seeking new products, new ideas and alternative designs. According to the Australian Gift and Homewares Association, importation is an important part of the Australian giftware market, with over 75% of our products being imported from over 46 different countries. Australia represents a lucrative market with a growing economy and growing consumer demand for luxury goods. And this sector is most obviously reflected in the jewellery and watch sector, which is currently valued at 4.6 billion Australian dollars. Luxury products have experienced the highest growth records in recent years, currently representing over 30% of this market. Despite the increase in high-end luxury purchases, costume jewellery remains steady and is also experiencing high levels of growth. Currently, the globalisation of the Australian jewellery industry is relatively low, and the majority of industry players are Australian. However, with the increase of online shopping, the opportunity for international companies to capture the Australian market is significantly growing. So I just wanted to look briefly at greeting cards, because this is quite an interesting sector of the giftware homeware market. It's probably worth mentioning as well. They're a significant component of the Australian giftware industry, currently valued at over 5 million Australian dollars. And interestingly, Australians are the third largest consumers of greeting cards in the world. And on average, each Australian purchases over 30 greeting cards each year. Now, that's a lot of greeting cards when we have a population of 23 million. The UK is one of the largest importers of greeting cards to Australia and the second largest importer of greeting cards to New Zealand. The British cards are highly regarded for their quality and value in Australia. Australians are currently buying greeting cards that are a little bit different, a little bit more quirky, brightly coloured, and that sometimes incorporates technology such as LED lighting or ones that sing when you open them up. So how to sell to Australia? I want to go through a few different options to selling to Australia, and then we'll look at how best to do that. So firstly, as I've already indicated, that more and more Australians are shopping online. E-commerce has actually become a fundamental change to the Australian retail sector. It's representing a paradigm shift in the way consumers are actually making transactions. Industry revenue has grown by 25% in the past 5 years to a total 14.6 billion Australian dollars. This is expected to continue to grow exponentially as well. 16 million Australians are currently connected to the internet, with 62% of these users regularly purchasing goods online. Of total internet sales in 2013, 27% were made through international online marketplaces. This is primarily due to reasons such as price, variety, and convenience. The homewares and giftwares accounted for 18% of online sales in 2013, with the most popular online marketplaces being hardtofind.com.au, etsy.com.au, as well as eBay and Amazon. Increasingly, Australians are using their mobile phones to make purchases online, with over 9 million mobile phones in Australia currently connected to the internet. So, routes to market. There are several different routes to market, the most common being through a distributor who purchases the goods from an exporter and resells them to retailers, through an agent who becomes a representative of the exporter, direct to the retailer where the products are sold directly from the exporter to the retailer, or online, which is a relatively risk-free way to enter the Australian market, and is a good way to gain an understanding of how well your product will be received in Australia. And the route to market is essentially up to the exporter. However, UKTI can assist with helping you decide which way will work best for you. Potential barriers to entry. The barriers are relatively low. Most of the retailers in Australia and New Zealand as well are small to medium-sized. And although Australian and New Zealand markets are relatively competitive, they're quite saturated markets as well. But if a product is unique and offers something different, there is a high chance that there will be a potential in the market for that product. Australia does have quite strict importation regulations and restrictions, particularly on products such as wood. So, doing business in Australia. It's relatively easy for a UK company to do business in Australia for reasons that I've already mentioned, and these also apply to New Zealand as well. In Australia, a company does not require an Australian business number or ABN to do business. However, it will need to obtain an ABN number if it wishes to obtain a .com.au domain address. Goods imported into Australia that are valued at or below 1,000 Australian dollars are exempt to GST, which is our goods and service tax, or an equivalent to your VAT. If the shipment is greater than $1,000, a rate of 10% applies. And import duties are usually around 5%, however this varies sometimes on the product itself. So how can we help? UKTI can carry out a number of services to help you successfully export or set up in the Australian and New Zealand markets. We can do this through our OMIS, which is where we carry out in-depth market research that's tailored to your company. And we generally use this to help you find a local distributor or agent. We can help you by putting you in contact with local industry partners and professional partners that have extensive experience with assisting companies set up in Australia, especially in areas such as taxation and legal advice. We can help you to attend trade shows or trade missions to visit the Australian market. We can also assist you in advertising or marketing. But basically, whatever you need, we should be able to help you with. Furthermore, we've put together a brief sector report for the homewares and giftwares industry. We've also got sector reports on the jewellery market as well as the e-commerce. And these sector reports expand on the topics which are featured in today's presentation and which we can provide to you free of charge. It features comprehensive information on opportunities, trends and tips on selling into Australia. It can also provide you with a bit of background information to try and work out the potential size of the market for your product. Finally, I just wanted to mention that the Australian Gift and Homewares Association, we do have quite close connections with AGRA, and we'll be more than happy to put you in touch with them. The Australian Gift and Homewares Association is the largest industry body for Australia for the home and giftware industries, and they have a membership base of over 3,000 members. They also publish a bi-monthly magazine called Gift Wrap, and that's distributed to all its members. So advertising in that magazine is a good way to reach a broad audience.